Welcome back to another episode of Adventures in Machine Learning. I'm one of your hosts, Michael Burke, and I do machine learning and data engineering at Databricks. And I'm joined by my newly appointed software engineering co host.
Ben Wilson. I integrate with tools like what our guest company builds at Databricks.
Nice. Yeah, so great segue. Today we have Sylvain Lesage. He got his PhD in machine learning and scientific computing, and since then he's taken a variety of software engineering roles. And honestly, there's a few too many to recount, so I won't. But most recently, he's been focusing on data visualization and software engineering at Hugging Face. So, Sylvain, I was going through your website for a little bit too long last night, looking at all the cool things you've put together. And I was wondering why you build so many things, so many tools. And to give a little bit of context for the listeners who might not have seen the website yet, he has a little widget that solves the equations for the mechanical design of a spring. He also has stuff for the Graham algorithm that looks to find the boundary of the smallest convex polygon that encloses all points of a set. So is this just for fun? Is it to learn? Why do you do all this?
For the spring, it was my brother who is a mechanical engineer, and he needed to design a spring, so he asked me if I could help, and I did it in some days at Christmas vacation. So it was very fun, but clearly not what I do every day. And I wanted to work with FreeGS, so it was very interesting.
Got it. So you did it because you're a kind person and you wanted to help out fellow engineers?
I was very curious about if I could do it or not.
Yeah, so from my perspective, I absolutely love learning by doing. And is that your experience? Because you also have a very fancy PhD and have held a variety of professional positions. So how do you approach learning new topics?
Yes, by the way, I have a special work experience because I did a lot of different things. I lived in France, in Bolivia. And I did special data engineering. I was also working on networks, on web development, data visualization, data engineering. So I like very much changing topics and trying and learning things, obviously, by doing them. So yes, I'm always very curious, and I like to have challenges and trying to prove myself I'm able to do it.
I hear that a lot from colleagues that also are like this, where it's not so much building something to solve a problem when you're not at work. It is part of that, but it's more that process of saying, like, I want to feel incompetent again. Like I want to see like how much I don't know and then figure that out. And everybody that I've known that does that, you start seeing it bleed into their work where they can figure things out faster than they could have years before, like new problems. Do you feel like it's changed the way that you approach engineering in general because you do a lot of that stuff?
Yes, that's true. It's I've always been somewhat incompetent in my job, and I even was an executive director for a public office in Bolivia, the name domains for the country. And I was not good at that, and it was like administrative work. And but I learned a lot. I also like worked talked for Bolivia at Geneva, United Nations. I don't like being a diplomatic, but it was something I learned too. And yes, I like to be like in danger and trying to work on this. Yes, it's something I like very much, and I think it's the best way to learn. I like very much to learn new things. But yes, the issue is that I don't really take the time to become very good at one thing. So I don't know. I never really took the time to focus on one thing. So maybe I'm missing other experiences.
I don't know. You're asking the wrong guy because I'm the same way. Uh, Jack of many trades, but
Yes.
master of none. But I've noticed that on teams, when you have people like that are very curious and want to learn new things and try out different approaches, having them balanced with the super deep people uh, with respect to tackling issues like somebody. I don't know if it's like that at your team, but we're kind of structured that way. We have a couple of people on a given team. They're sort of generalist software engineers, and they can figure out like how to design these things and the big picture. They understand how integrations work with other tools at the company and how a user might use something. But that person is not necessarily the best software developer, like executing code and getting it shipped.
So,
But then you have these other people that are amazing at just churning out perfect production code because they've gone so deep into this one area.
oh,
Do you find that stuff like that at places that you've been before, that mixed teams like that work pretty well?
yes, currently we are a team of five, I think, and we have some colleagues that are Python geniuses and that can really can follow on their other level. And I really do very basic Python code, but clearly I'm contributing to different levels to JavaScript in the front end product, data visualization, Python backend, the network, Kubernetes, and so a lot of different things. I'm not good at none, but I'm able to contribute to all the stack. And on the other side, for example, people who work on the dataset library, which is very specific, they are contributing and producing a lot of code every day, and but clearly more focused on this topic. So I think it works very well. We are able to fix issues very quickly. Uh, if it's basic, we can any member can take the issue, and if it's a bit harder, we have always somebody more specialist able to deep to go deeper. So yes, it works well, but we are also a small team, so we can't escalate with every level of expertise. So everybody in the team is has to go outside of their comfort zones. But we like very much working with small teams. It's very efficient for what we could see.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Sort of the smaller the team, the more tactical you can be. And often the generalist skill set serves small teams well because you do have to wear many hats. If you don't have 100 people, you don't have your designated XGBoost engineer, your dedicated JavaScript, whatever the developers are. And so it's really interesting to hear that. How would you describe the culture beyond generalist of your team? Because I've been joining some of Ben's MLflow OSS stand-ups and sort of learning more about, and I work with external teams every day, multiple times a day. So what are some of the core tenets of culture of your team that you find lead to success?
I think our team is working as the same as Hugging Face in general. which we have some basic principles to work asynchronously. So really, we in our team we do 1 hour meeting every 2 weeks, and but we didn't do it last time, so it's like 1 month without a meeting this month, and it works very well. It's useful to speak from time to time to set up a bit the strategy or the tactic for the next weeks, but we don't have this kind of bureaucratic Scrum protocol. We really don't do that. So it's basically Slack, GitHub issues, and that's it. And the other thing is we really are free to work on what we want, or we have some priorities, but really there is no micromanagement. There is even no management, I would say. So we are autonomous, and we see how every member of the team can contribute better. So there are a lot of daily messages on Slack to see how everyone can help the other ones, but every member of the team feels responsible for the product, and so it works very well. And also, one thing I didn't mention is that everybody is working remotely, so we we don't we are not all in the same time zone, so this kind of setup works very well for our team. For example, the last 2 months, I have been working from Bolivia with 6 hours of difference with France time zone, and it worked the same. I don't. There were no differences, so it's very robust for us.
I think to a lot of our listeners who maybe work at companies that don't subscribe to that philosophy, they're probably like, yeah, the software's probably not that good, or the product's not that good. Allow me to assuage those doubts. Throughout the last, on and off, pretty much like the last 10 months, I've been from the initial feature implementation to follow-up PRs and feature requests that we've added, which we're still continuing to do. I've probably interfaced with APIs that you've had your hand in building many times, dozens per week whenever we're working on a feature. I've never been anything but delighted with particularly the datasets APIs and how Hugging Face Hub works. It's cleverly designed. It's implemented properly, where you don't have, as a user, you don't have to worry about like, oh, how do I fetch from this particular S3 bucket and get authentication keys and do all of this stuff to find this particular reference by some, unique ID. The APIs are very simple. You just get this tag reference. It fetches all of the required data, brings it to your local machine, and now you're operating off of a local cache. So the way that you've described how your team works and this 100% remote, distributed, not exactly following agile methodology with Scrum, it's working for your team. Do you think that the entry bar for a team like that is potentially age gated or experience gated? Could you start a new team with 5 members that have less than a year experience? And do you think that would work? Or do you need somebody who's senior, who's been doing this for 20 years to kind of be the mentor for that team remotely?
By the way, we I think it works without requiring a lot of experience. In the team, we have different levels of experience, and by the way, the team leader has a lot less experience as the rest of the team, but it works very well. And I think if you hire people who are interested in who have interested in the project and have a good level, good technical level, and you give them uh, autonomy and responsibility, I think it works well. There is a self coordination and organization that every team will find, and but with clever people, you generally uh, get a good working team. So I'm not sure the age or experience is a requirement for a team to work this way. By the way, I don't think we. I think it's really a very good setup for a team, and I would very. I don't want to work in another setting anymore if I can.
I'm personally loving remote work as well myself, and our team is globally distributed, just like your entire company is, and it works amazingly well for us because we trust one another. We communicate asynchronously or through non-traditional means and get things done. One thing that I'm curious about hearing from you in particular, before we started recording, you showed us a new product that you just released 2 days ago, and I kind of fanboyed a little bit on it. It's like, wow, this is so fast and it's so well done, and the front end looks super nice, and it just is very well implemented. Um, when you get a new project like that, which I'm sure you've done things like this in the past based on your work history, but when you get something that's new or you have a new idea, what's your process that you use for going from that ideation to a prototype?
Yes, but we generally try, but we don't take a lot of time to try prototypes. We think more globally than just our team. We are sharing with more uh, team members at the interface when we have ideas of what new features we will work on, in particular with the CTO, and see how it will have an impact on the product. And when we have it, when we decide on which feature we want to try, we look at which stack we can use behind it. The idea is to use the simplest technology possible, and it works well. For now, I don't know if it will always work. In particular, as we are scaling and adding more and more data sets, but the idea we have taken is to make every processing the more unitary possible, atomic, so we can scale and deploy on more and more workers when we need it, when we need them. So uh, and one way we saw to be able to do this and is to rely on the simplest technology is to have files. So we use the datasets library to convert every dataset to the Parquet format, which is a very useful format to do a lot of queries or statistics on a dataset. And then all the following processes are done on Parquet, particularly using DuckDB, which is you can run with one process that uses a file and returns result. You can run any SQL query on with DuckDB. And so it's basically the idea we have for everything we are doing on datasets tagging face on, for the product to show things to people, and it works very well. So maybe we had luck, maybe it was a good idea, I don't know, but for now it's working well. And we hadn't to do much prototyping for that. We just converted to Parquet, tried that the queries were fast, that our server could serve the, the requests and the responses quickly. And that's it. And on the front end side, yes, we did some prototypes. I use a lot the observable platform. I don't know if you know it. It's a platform done by, in particular, by Mike Bostock, who created D3.js, and I've used it a lot when I was doing more data visualization as a freelancer, and I'm keeping using it to prototype the front end data visualization. So, but really, we are not doing a lot of research or prototyping. That we only try to develop the feature, and when it's working more more or less, we ship it, and if it's not working well, we fix it. There is like a culture of shipping the fastest possible, and fixing when we need to fix it, not to overthink it, and not forecast for any possible scenario, but more reacting fast when we see some issues.
Got it. So it's sort of the move fast and break things approach. That's
Yes.
really interesting. And I've seen that employed at a variety of Databricks teams as well. But typically, when you have very like multi-million-dollar ETL pipelines, you do need some guarantees on reliability. So it definitely depends upon the type of technology that you're working on. But I sort of have a more high-level question, which is, data visualization, in my opinion, is sort of a slept on topic. And it's very pretty. It's good for LinkedIn posts. And you're like, oh, look at my scatter plotter or my heat map or whatever it might be. But I was wondering how you, as a legitimate expert in data visualization, how you think about good data visualization. What is good design? What is bad design? Are there any principles that you follow when you're looking to communicate a story with data?
There are like two kinds of data visualization. One is explanatory, exploratory, and the other is to explain things. So, in the case of Hugging Face, we are wanting to give users a way to understand their data and to change things, to filter, to search, and to have insights on the data. But we don't want to take an editorial role and to say them this is what you want to see and to know in your data. So it's more giving exploratory tools for the people. We are just starting to integrate data visualization to the dataset viewer, but it's the way we are working on. You know, obviously, if a lot of people are doing data visualization for newspapers, for example, and in this case, it's the other way. You are looking and analyzing the data, and when you have some insights, you are trying to do a very cute and uh, innovative data visualization that will help people understand one key insight of what you could extract from the data. So you are using basically the same tools from to do that, but the process is different. And in our case, at Hugging Face, we are like giving the tools for people to play with the data and to extract what they want.
So, question on that: how do you know what dials and knobs to add in, and how to also simultaneously keep the product simple? Because when the feature that Ben was talking about that you guys built a couple of days ago, it's basically a histogram plot on the top of each column, and then some unique values or some road displays under that histogram. Very similar to what Kaggle does. Why? I mean, histograms are awesome. I absolutely love them. But how did you know that histograms were the right decision versus a scatter plot versus a box plot versus the 70 other plots that communicate very similar information? And how did you not actually put in 50 different widgets? Like, how do you distill down to the essential product?
Yes, first we looked at what other websites are doing, Kaggle, Observable, Hypnote, etc., etc. And there is like a standard way of doing things, and that seems correct. It's it's very important to do data visualizations that people will understand, and that there are standards that everybody understands, and we don't want you to have to think, oh, will I read this data? When you see the histogram for a numerical column, you know what it means. You can cover the bars and you understand what is written below. The I is a number of samples for that class. So we and as it was the first data visualization we integrated in the dataset page, we wanted it to be the most simple possible, what people will expect. And we will iterate a bit. For example, you can see currently we are not showing anything over the string columns. And why? We have a lot of NLP uh, data sets, and there are like two kinds of strings. Some are classes, so you have a label, for example, good, bad, I don't know. So in this case, we could show like the frequency of every class, as we are currently doing on some. We have a specific type of column which is class level, and so uh, we show a specific widget for them. And the majority of string columns are prompts, large sentences. And so we have to think what we will show. If we will show something, if we show something, it must be very simple to catch. You have to understand what this means. So we are thinking of showing an histogram of the length of the strings and see if it works for people. If it doesn't work, we will change it. But we don't want to support any kind of data and to show very complex widgets. We prefer to go one step at a time and see if it works. And if we have a lot of comments that it's not understandable, we will remove it. I don't.
Yeah, there's something really to be said, in my opinion, with the simplistic approach and not overloading users. It reminds me of a ticket I responded to a couple of months ago where somebody was using MLflow and they had an issue where they were saying, "Well, my plots aren't rendering the way that I want within the UI." Like, initially thinking like, "Oh, that's our visualization. Like, I need to verify that our plot, like the generated plots that we do and the plot builder work." I go and test it, like, everything's working fine on my end, and then look deeper into the ticket with what they're reporting and ask them. And it was charts that they were generating as artifacts to be stored to the runs. So it's just, PNGs that they're saving off as part of logging. and I looked into the run that they shared, and there's 1,500 pictures that are attached to each run. And I'm like, yeah, it's really slow. Yeah, you're writing 1,500 files that are all at 4K resolution effectively. These are huge pictures that you're generating. Um, but I looked at a couple of the pictures that they shared, and even being in this field for going on a decade and a half, uh, I'm trying to figure out what the plot was for. It was something that I had never seen before, but it was so busy. There were so many lines. So there's like a shadowed histogram in the background, and then there were plot points of individual data points with like overlaid on top of that were different shapes and color coded. And then it looked like there were probability distribution functions being mapped for like within each histogram, but vertical. So just on their side. And I'm like, I asked the first time, like, what are these plots for, and what do you get out of these plots? Because it looks like this is 6 plots in one, and it took me. I set a timer on my phone when I first looked at it. I'm like, I'm just gonna start a timer. I'll stop the timer when I can explain what this chart does in less than 4 sentences. And it took me 73 seconds to get to that point of just working it through my head, being like, what is going on here? So what are your thoughts when presented with somebody's, like, maybe a feature request, when you're talking about a data visualization or an idea that they have? Like, it would be great if I could, for the text string, if I could get the length of each string, the average, the median, the token count as it would be seen
Mhm.
by a transformers model. Like, what do you think of when people give you that sort of feature feedback with requests?
Basically, we have a lot of ideas and a lot of experts who are producing this kind of metrics and graphs and charts. For example, to assess the quality of the dataset, to see if the dataset is well balanced, if um, if there are biases inside the dataset. So there are a lot of very advanced measurements, but the issue is that it's too hard to understand them, and the Hugging Face Hub is designed for everybody. Any user that want to do machine learning has to understand what we are showing. So we have this obligation, which is to be the GitHub of machine learning. So we want for every technologist to be a user of Hugging Face, not only the developers, but we think other people can be working with machine learning in the next years. So we have to think of the Hugging Face Hub as a website that everybody can use, and for that for that reason we need to for for the data visualization we are showing on the dataset page, we have to make it the most common and understandable possible. So we have a lot of fancy metrics or measurements that can find if a dataset is well balanced, or if there are biases, or if the text is showing the same word distributions as the English language, and these kind of things. They are very useful to have some insights about the quality of the dataset, but we are struggling a lot to think how to show this in a small space, because you can see we are using like 100 pixels by 30 pixels. So we are we have to show something very clear there. So every decision, and we are not only taking the decision as a dataset team, but also with front end people and design people who are very strong on trying to keep things very simple. So we cannot ship complex things. They will not pass these filters. It's something very important for us to do something that every people working with Hugging Face can understand very quickly. So it's, but we are also thinking how to introduce new metrics more focused on or specific to machine learning that can help people, because if we only show histograms, it's not, we are not extracting all the value we could from the data, and we are not giving all the insights we could to help people do the best machine learning uh, learning models or fine tuning. We have things we could bring to people, and we have to think how to show them. So it's, I think it's our main struggle currently to find the middle way, how to be useful and simple.
And that's probably one of the most challenging things to deal with, particularly under sort of the pressure that your company's on now. And it's not a bad pressure that Hugging Face has now. And I'm interested in what your perception was or has been over the last 1 year at the company, when, I mean, data, like serious data scientists in NLP world and people doing applied ML, they've known about Hugging Face for years, and people have been using it. It's super successful. It's an awesome tool and ecosystem. The hub is awesome. And then what was it like, and how does it influence your product decisions now when you realize that people are mentioning your company and the technology of your company in the evening news or in newspapers?
Yes, that's a pressure. It has, the status has changed a lot in the next year or two, and it's a lot of pressure as an engineer, because you see the impact. You know that there are more and more users. The company is what Hugging Face is doing is has an impact. People are seeing Hugging Face as a promoter of open source in the machine learning landscape, and also we are pushing a lot the ethics in the machine learning world. So we have to transfer this image or these principles into the product, which is why we want to show insights that help uh, detect bad data sets or data sets that could do harm. And we have an ethics team. We work very well in this, has a lot of impact, I think, in the in the in the landscape in general. And we have to take them insights, to take their ideas, and to convert them as product features. And it's not easy. There is surely innovation we have to produce and to convert into product features, and it's very exciting to do something new, and to try to be geared by some high level principles. We want to change how machine learning is working, trying to help people do good machine learning. So
A couple of episodes ago, maybe it was last week, we were talking about advances in LLM design and maybe, next generation after Transformers, which I'm sure Hugging Face will be the one hosting that globally for whatever the next research iteration is. But that advancement's going to keep on happening, and it's a good thing. What I'm really interested in is a discussion point that we came to during that podcast about ethical use of highly capable language models that can distill complex information and answer questions. With you working on the dataset team, you're in a unique position of being able to look at any open source data set that's submitted. I mean, probably for the private repos as well, but for the ones that are given out there for open source, do you ever have any concerns or fears associated with somebody releasing something onto the platform that you could take a highly capable pre-trained model and train it for nefarious reasons? Like, hey, the data set contains the step-by-step instructions for building the first 3 generations of nuclear weapons back in the 1940s and 50s. And then somebody can ask the LLM, can you give me a walkthrough on how to create the primary detonator for, a fission bomb? Of course, not that exact example. Mm-hmm. That would be pretty complex. But the idea of somebody putting something out there that anybody who doesn't require the amount of technical acumen in order to do it themselves. But the Hugging Face APIs are intentionally simple, and for good reason. Like they hide a ton of complexity behind them, so anybody really can go through a couple tutorials and kind of get started. Is there a concern on your perspective for stuff like that?
I think it's one of the reasons why Hugging Face has integrated new social features to the hub. It means in particular the discussions tab, where any users can discuss, debate, and also trigger issues when they see things that shouldn't be published. And we have some requests to unpublish some data sets or models. We have obviously our terms that our politics that have to be respected, and but we try to keep it open and discussed with the community, and it works very well as far as I can see. But for what I've seen, we really are very far from the kind of example you are mentioning, and we don't, and we also have a specific tag which is not for all eyes, or for not for all audiences, which can be put on datasets or models that you could also call not safe for work, and it helps a lot too, because everybody has the right to train models for the sector. So we allow people to do what they have to do for their work, but also to protect, if people want to be safer when they browse the hub, they can just respect the not for all audiences tag, and they will not see them. And but clearly, by doing everything transparent and with the community, it helps a lot, detecting, discussing, and also defining what is acceptable and what is not. So a lot of topics are still not clear in the ML domain. Everybody is experimenting. What is this possible? We should we do this? And we try to be one of the spaces where we can debate these things and help defining the good practices and the limits of what is doable or not.
It's interesting crowdsourcing stuff like that because you don't have to retain expertise about all these different domains internally in your company. Like if you're trying to police something like that, you're limited by human resources basically. Like how many people can go through all of these data sets and see what's in here? Because there's a lot of activity on Hugging Face Hub in particular. It's amazing to me how many people are like retraining and pushing stuff out there.
Ah,
It's like auditing that is would be monumental to go through to have like a non-automated way of doing that. When you see some of the new stuff that's coming out that people are either very recently releasing or there's announcements that, hey, this company is about to release something that's on par with ChatGPT 3.5, abilities, and they're going to give it away for free, or some companies are working on stuff that they're going to fully open source that's intended to directly compete with GPT-4 with like mixture of experts and stuff, and they're going to put it on the hub. How do you see something like that disrupting industries in general that are now building up around what you guys have been doing for years in a very intelligent way of like, hey, we're going to create the marketplace and give you places to manage all this. But now we have all these LLM startups that are like, oh, we're going to build this new model that's going to compete directly with them and then we'll charge for access to it. How do you see that defining the tech landscape because of the fact that Hugging Face exists and this open source ability to use whatever's out there?
sure, we are betting for open source from the start, and philosophically, we think that the same. We think that free software and open source software as one, and we think the same will occur with machine learning. It's a bet. We don't really know. It's not a philosophical question. It's more like what will how the world will work and which all the different companies will fight to defend their interests. So we will see, but we are betting on. We think open source machine learning is more efficient, provides more innovation, and at the end benefits more people and more companies. So we hope it will work that way. Some companies are going only for closed source machine learning. Some are doing a bit of both, like Microsoft, but it's not defined now. Obviously, Hugging Face is a place where people are releasing mostly the open source models and datasets. So we are pushing and helping them as far as we can, trying to make people or companies release their models, release their datasets. Also advocating, because there is a lot of fear. Companies who think that they will lose control, when control to me is more how fast you can and how much expertise you can bring to your clients. So it's a risk you have to take. Some companies cannot take it and don't want to take it, but for innovation, open source is really an engine that works very well.
Yeah, and we've been sort of hinting at throughout these topics a really interesting economic and sort of business principle, which is the value of providing and creating infrastructure. If you think about the ascent of LLMs to sort of the forefront of the entire industry, there's a bunch of winners. There's the people that use the LLMs for chatbots and can automate their tech support or whatever it is. But as you sort of descend down into the ranks, well, these models have to be trained. Nvidia's stock price, just look at it over the past year. That's a amazing example of the value of sort of being in an infrastructure company, and we see that at Databricks as well. And Hugging Face as a sort of a hub and as a provider to allow people to interact with models, serve them, create them, that type of thing. It's a very valuable and sort of stable position. And so Hugging Face is very well respected and well known. But Silvana, I was wondering if you had some insight into where the company is going, and also Ben, I'm sure you do as well. Like where is Hugging Face looking to go over the next several years, and also from sort of a data visualization perspective, what excites you about what Hugging Face is working on?
For the company as a whole, I don't think I can answer, and if I answer, I'm not sure it will be right. So I don't think we really know what will. We are still a startup, so we are taking things, trying what is working, what is not working on the business model side. So basically, what we are proposing currently is enterprise use of the hub to have some additional features that enterprise companies are interested in, and providing inference at a production quality level, and learning models also with our auto train proposal but offer. But I don't know if it will be the future. I don't know if we will pivot at some time to something else. I don't, but surely something we will find. So I'm not at all scared. I think we have clearly a position which is very good in the landscape, because clearly the community has a good image of Hugging Face, and we try to not betray them. So I think if we keep with these principles, we can still still work well as a company. But for the data visualization side, which is a lot less important than the first point, I think we will keep trying to do very small things in the simplest possible, and try to innovate on the small spaces we will be allowed to show on the hub. I don't think we are not a data visualization or data analysis company. We want people to be able to integrate the Hugging Face hub more and more in their daily work. So we are listening to how people are working, what they ask, what they have to do. A lot of people are doing data annotation, for example, but we are not doing this for now, and I don't know if we will do it, but we are still seeing how we will help people more working with their data sets to improve them, clean them. And so if data visualization is useful to do this, we will use it. If not, it's better not to put too much garbage on the page. So really, we are thinking every pixel we are showing on the hub, and trying to reduce it, to hide it, to remove it if possible. So it's very hard to put a chart on the website, but we try to make it the simplest possible.
Yeah, your dedication to simplicity is impressive. The fact that it's come up like at least 12 times during this podcast.
Impressive. I mean, it shows in the product too, because it's just so clean and so well designed. You get what you need like anytime that I have to write a lot of integration tests with transformers and data sets and integration with the hub. And if I ever get a question or something, I'm like, why am I getting this weird behavior with this model that some, big tech company put onto the hub that I need to use because it's a tiny model that I need for an integration test. I know exactly where to go. I just go to the hub, I go to the model card, I read the model card real quick. The information's there that I need. I don't have to go and search in 17 different places or look in their source code that maybe they updated, or I'm not searching through GitHub to figure out like how all this stuff was made and why that exception's being thrown. The information's there. And then if I want to see like what did they do with their tokenizer? Well, I can go look at that as well. And it's just navigating the hub is a delight. And I wish that more open source focused companies built stuff like that, because I mean, I don't know if anybody else does what Hugging Face does though. So you guys are Switzerland, right? You are not taking sides in the inevitable war that's coming, right? Like this is an arms race with these models, the big ones. I think it's going to accelerate over the next 5 years, and everybody's pushing everything to Hugging Face. You have Meta, Microsoft, Mosaic, Databricks, all of these, Google, all these massive tech companies that can throw a bunch of scientists at these problems and say, yeah, we saw what somebody released 6 months ago. Here's something we're working on internally that we think the world could benefit from. Where are we going to host it? Could Google host that model? Of course they can. They can host whatever they want. Can Microsoft host it? Yeah. But they're not doing that. They're pushing that model artifact to Hugging Face because it's Switzerland. It's the safe place that everybody can collaborate, which, in my opinion, it's beautiful. I love your product, your company, what you guys have done. I think it's great.
By the way, as the last the Series D, which has been announced 1 month ago, was done with everybody in the ecosystem on early. So Google, Nvidia, AMD, Salesforce, etc., etc. And I think it's because all these actors see Hugging Face as a neutral place, uh, which is useful for everybody and which is not really competing with any of them. So, and it's very interesting for us to be considered as a neutral place, because it means that everybody is needing a Hugging Face in some way too, and we are useful for them. So it's a good validation of what we have been doing.
I've got one final personal question for you. Just out of curiosity, have you thought about the fact that your grandchildren are going to read about what you're doing at this point in your career? Like previous tech companies, maybe it won't even be mentioned in the history books. Like it's not like a significant contribution. Like most of the places that we've worked in the past, they could be big companies, but we might not have been part of something so critical to that. But do you think about that every once in a while? Like, hey, the code that I'm writing today and the projects that I'm working on, this is doing something that's changing the face of our species on this planet. I mean, think about the technological leap that all of this stuff has enabled and how it's a paradigm shift globally. When I start having, extended family members that are not in tech be like, oh, did you try that GPT thing, that chat thing? When it's that well known, it enters the social consciousness, and that means it's actually changing things. Do you ever think about that though? Like you're doing something that's like going to be written about in history books.
It's interesting because, as I mentioned before recording, I haven't done machine learning for a long time, and it's worse than that. I'm not particularly interested in machine learning as such. It means I love what I'm doing, but the global field of machine learning, I think it, and artificial intelligence, I think it will change a lot. It will have the same impact as computer science has, or the internet has had. It's really a paradigm change, but uh, I don't think it will be the only one. I think it will be important, but it's weird. I don't feel like an actor of it. I'm I'm doing more like the side features on the data sets, and I love it. But I don't know if I'm afraid or I don't know. It's like I don't want to take too much part of AI. I don't know if it makes sense.
It does make sense, and it's the same answer I get from everybody working at massive tech companies that are doing cool stuff. It's just this sense of humility, particularly in software engineering, where you're just like, I'm just working on this little part. Like, no, you're building something that's required for that product to work.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, it's you. I think you realize the scope of what's involved, and all of your peers who are, fantastic and amazing and geniuses, and they're all also humble. So you're like, I don't want to, claim credit for anything. It's a team effort, which is nice.
What I think I wanted to say is that it's such a big change that every individual contribution is also somewhat insignificant. I mean, it's
Sure.
part of something so big that, for example, it's a shame, but I was hired at Hugging Face without knowing what Hugging Face was. they, they contacted me to do data visualization, and I was like, oh, very interesting. It looks like a nice company. And then I saw the impact the company has. So I was like, I feel a bit like an imposter because I'm not part of the Hugging Face fans that
Right.
that's want to bring to that topic and to machine learning. If I really loved that field, I would have known Hugging Face before. So it's like for that reason, I feel a bit on the side of it. But it's so fascinating. I learn every day. It's in being part of a company like a game face. It's also very intimidating to see so much news every day. What AI is capable of, and also it's a reason for which I prefer to just look from far because you cannot keep up with the rhythm of the news, or you
Right.
will only do this. So you have to let things go and come and just take some bits when you can, but you cannot keep up with the rhythm of this. It's
Definitely.
clearly it's a revolution, and it's hard to keep informed and to understand everything at that time. So we will see. I'm impatient to see what will come next year's.
It'll be exciting.
Yeah, just to quickly point something out, just because you're one of the ants in the giant colony, it doesn't mean that you're insignificant. Like maybe you might not be the CEO ant, but still, worker ants are essential, and your contributions are felt. So, yeah, it's awesome.
I mean, the CEO isn't writing code.
And
I mean,
writing code
some
is better
CEOs
than
do,
Some
but
are, but
yeah, yeah. We won't get into whether you write code or not, which human is better, but that's a different episode. All right, so I will quickly wrap. Today we talked about a bunch of really cool things. A couple of things that I wanted to highlight were regarding culture specifically for remote teams. You got to be able to work asynchronously. The Hugging Face team that Sylvain works for does an hour meeting every 2 weeks, and that seems to be sufficient. So if you have very good asynchronous communication and you know what you're doing generally, really infrequent meetings could work for your team. And also, they really focus on working what they enjoy doing, like working on projects that they find stimulating and challenging. And then they also, just based on how he's been talking, you can tell they really ship fast, iterate, move fast, and break things. That paradigm is very apparent in this team. Their tech stack, they use a lot of Parquet, DuckDB, JavaScript, Python, and Git. And they try to leverage as much open source as possible. If it's already out there, why would you build it again? And then from a data visualization perspective, there are sort of two core camps. The first is exploratory, the second is explanatory. Exploratory, you don't really know what you're trying to communicate. Explanatory, you have a vision or a thesis that you're trying to defend. And in both cases, it's important to keep things simple and look around you, look at the competition, see what other people are doing. Because again, if it already exists, don't recreate it. So, Sylvain, if people want to learn more about you, your work at Hugging Face, or your personal stuff, where should they go?
Basically, I'm posting on LinkedIn. I'm also switching from X to Mastodon. If people want to follow me, I prefer to post on Mastodon. And but also we try to push the social features on Hugging Face, so my profile on Hugging Face.
Well, this has been a lot of fun. And until next time, it's been Michael Burke and my co host.
Ben Wilson.
And have a good day, everyone.
We'll see you next time.